Again, it's wedding season, a time to celebrate love with family and friends. A new play is challenging perceptions about women and wanting to get married. Does society expect all women to say, I do? This is an issue director Khutjo Green looks at in a play titled Mirage. Also with us in studio is speaker and relationship guru Kofi Ofori-Boateng. A very good morning to both of you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for
So much deliciousness in this play, Khutjo. I think a lot of women are finding themselves in that space where you're challenging everything that you have been brought up to believe around marriage. Before we even get into it, what is it all about?
Mirage is about a fabulous wedding planner called Mandisa Sithole, who basically designs and creates these weddings, these fabulous weddings for her friends, but she does not want to get married. And so the people around her keep asking her, when is your day? When is it your day? How long are you going to be the maid of honor or the bridesmaid? You can't do that forever. So she has a lot of pressure from her family, especially her mother, as well as her friends. And one of her friends, Bonolo, calls her a gamophobe. And a gamophobe is one who fears commitment. So she doesn't necessarily not want to be in a relationship. She just doesn't want to commit herself to that institution of marriage.
Sure.
And she fears the day that Tabang, her boyfriend, asks whether, you know, they want to hitch it up or not. And so she doesn't know whether she'll answer yes or no. But currently where she's at in her headspace is to say no.
Sure. Kofi, I can tell you from a female perspective, when you're growing up from 10 years old, you're taught to wash the dishes, to clean up after everybody, to make sure that everyone else is okay. Not because when you grow up you're going to need to be self-sufficient, but because there is a man that needs taken care of, be it your brother, be it your uncles, be it your cousins who are male. Do you find with men that there is some pressure on you to get married?
There is pressure on us to get married. I think the expectations tend to be quite different, and perhaps we don't put as much pressure on ourselves as women do to get married. So yes, the expectation will be there from the family side. They will expect grandkids, they will expect you to carry on the family name, but then we're not necessarily prepared for it in the same manner that women are, or you know, taught to think about it continuously in the manner in which women are. And I think that's where you see a bit of a disconnect when it's time to get married.
This woman finds herself in a space where she's been arranging marriages for forever, but then now comes a time for her to actually interrogate her own relationship with wanting to get married or not. Why does she find herself questioning that?
Only because she, again, we're talking about expectations. That's not an expectation that she has for herself. She wants to look at alternative ways of coexisting with your partner. So for her, it's really about that, like finding other ways in which we can, you know, live without necessarily getting into the institution of marriage, because it also brings its own things that oftentimes we're not, like we were saying, prepared for. We don't actually, sure, there's marriage counseling and all of that, but I think when two people have to relate to one another, it's quite difficult, it's quite hard. It's a journey in discovering one another and how we coexist.
Heck, it's a journey discovering yourself.
Exactly.
So,
so she finds herself in a conundrum to say, is this something that she's willing to, because here's the thing is, she doesn't know if it's okay because we've been conditioned to believe it's not okay to leave. So if I were to enter, is it okay for me to leave? So the play also challenges those stigmas around women leaving, because it's so easy for men, but it's a generalization, but it's easy for men to leave. And so if a woman does it, then it becomes a problem.
Kofi, on that issue of finding out the difference between a wedding and marriage, you grow up all your life, you cut out the pictures of wedding dresses, what you're going to look like on that day, how many kids you want, the picket fence house, but no one actually prepares you for the institution of marriage. There's a difference between the two.
Totally.
There's a huge difference, and the thing is, so we'd have to go back to what love is. And for a lot of people, when you talk about love, the Western definition of love is a feeling, an emotion that one feels towards another person. But it's actually deeper than that. It's actually the character that you display. It's a state of being that you share with another person. So as men, for example, You said, for example, that it's easier for men to walk away from relationships. If a man is genuinely being loved to his woman, it's not going to be easy to walk away because he would have taken the time to consider the investment he's going to make in this person.
Yeah.
And as he makes that investment, he realizes, I can't just walk away from this investment. But when you approach it from a feelings perspective and it's a convenience issue and, you know, today I feel this way about you, tomorrow I don't, then you're not really loving this woman. And if you're going to start focusing on the wedding, of course, the feelings are going to play up because that's an event that you want everyone to be at. It's a happy occasion. But the marriage deals with a whole range of feelings, and what the one constant needs to remain your mindset, your attitude, your state of being towards this person throughout the process. And that's where I think a lot of us are really not prepared enough for the journey of marriage.
That's one element that we're not prepared for. Another element that we're not prepared for is the family that you're going to be inheriting. I think that's also something no one ever tells you about. So you find women who have inherited really cruel in-laws where people mistreat you, whether you're a man or a woman, because it happens on both sides. Would you say that's just some of the reasons why women find themselves in this day and age not wanting to get married?
I totally agree with that sentiment. It's not for all women, but a lot. There's a sort of like an initiation process that they have to go through, and they don't quite understand why it has to be that torturous. And I think it goes back to that idea that, you know, you know. So the moment we hear that, for me, it becomes problematic, because who's going to mend my bleeding hands if I'm holding the knife on both ends? And that idea of what is that? So I think, because, and if we don't know where to go with our problems, if I can't necessarily go to my in-laws, if I can't go back to my family, and my family tells me that, listen, in a marriage, then it becomes something that I don't necessarily want to deal with, you know, because the wedding is one thing, and then the marriage, to have to stay in it and becomes, I think something that does put a little bit of fear in certain women.
Have we changed the way, and naturally we people, we always breaking barriers, but in terms of the family structure when it comes to marriage, when two people come together, it's not just you and your partner coming together, but it's you and the families coming together. The ideal situation is that you have this foundation where families can protect you guys even from yourself sometimes, where you go to them with your problems. In the absence of that, Kofi, how important is it that a man actually steps up and protects his woman from his family?
You know, it's funny because this past week I was doing a video series on covering, and there's this misconception that a woman needs to cover a husband. She needs to be a praying wife. She needs to be, you know, super strong and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is, a man is the one who's supposed to cover his wife. He's supposed to cover his family. And because a lot of guys have incompetence in this area or lack competence in this area, they then start to abdicate their responsibilities and push it on to either the family or to the wife or to anybody that they feel is better qualified to do so. Now, the thing is, men need to get back to that place of taking up that mantle of covering. Part of the reason why a lot of women shrink away from marriage is because men are simply not doing what they're supposed to do in a marriage. And as a man, if you're going to walk into somebody's home, you need to walk in there qualified. You need to walk in there certified to some extent or competent. If she's had a father who's provided for her whole life and has been a covering her whole life, you're picking up that mantle. So you need to find out exactly what it takes to be that mantle for her. And failure to do so then starts to create that breakdown of the relationship, that breakdown in respect, that breakdown in honor. If I may just add this, scripturally speaking, a man is asked to love a woman. A woman is asked to respect a man, but respect is earned.
Hallelujah.
You don't just get it.
Amen. Then you find a man who says, but isn't it you're a 2018 woman? Isn't it there's this 50-50 element? Isn't it you want to be the CEO? Isn't it you want to be this progressive woman? Then what is my space in the household? Do we put that down to insecurity? What do we put that down to it? And how do we even begin to fix that?
I put it down to ignorance. When you know who you are and when you know what your role is and when you've prepared yourself for your role, then you're able to approach it with more confidence. A woman in a high position, a woman with a lot of money, a powerful woman is still a woman. at the end of the day, she's still going to need someone to cover her. She's still going to need someone to confide in. She's going to need someone who's going to be there for her when she needs shelter from the world. You can play that role regardless of her position in life. But for as long as you take the inferior, weak position, there is nothing for her to come back to and, you know, seek succor or seek relief or seek shelter in, because you haven't provided that space for her. So you need to do that for her.
Sure. Khutjo, another element that the play looks at is the kind of pressure that is put on women, even on your special day, right? You find that we sing some songs. Some of them can be really, really cruel to us women. So you are coming in, you're going to be doing all the work, you're going to be taking care of everybody. On your special day, you find us singing songs where we're meant to be celebrating, but really when you interrogate them, they break down the woman.
It was very interesting for us to arrive at that point where we were interrogating the songs that we sing at the weddings, and oftentimes we had not thought about their intentions and their meanings back then. But when you look at them now, they have such an important resonance to how we view relationships and how we view the bride to be. I mean, one of my most interesting one is and so what we've done on that is kind of turn it on its head to reveal the other side, the ugly side of relationships that we often don't do. So but not necessarily covering or protecting her. It's quite the opposite. It's quite a traumatic experience for her. And it was lovely seeing in the first runs that we've had how people were. It's almost like a revelation came to them that, oh my gosh, why are we insisting that she looks like a colored person? What is that also? So this ideology that keeps being perpetuated around what the ideal wife looks like, the trophy wife, you know? And that like builds us from like a young age. We get conditioned to believe that this is how we need to be. Hence, we have like our own insecurities around what we look like. You find people, you know, going to the gym now, like months before, just so she can look a particular way. And there's nothing wrong with that. But she's doing it out of being conditioned to believe that this is how you need to look at your wedding. You can't be a plus size bride. You can't be, you know, you can't have certain like pigmentations on your face. So I think it's quite crucial and critical to unpack what those songs mean and why.
Kofi, we sometimes don't take the time out to understand why it is that we do something or what is it that you are actually doing. When we talk about the institution of marriage, what are we talking about?
When we talk about the institution of marriage, we're talking about an institution that is created basically as a wealth vehicle. That's at the most fundamental level, that's what it is. So if we look at the black community, for example, when you get married, you're basically creating a family within which you're going to create and distribute and preserve wealth. Now, outside of that context, outside of that institution, if you have children, it's hard for them to lay claim to their inheritance. It's hard for your significant other to lay claim to whatever you leave behind. But within a marriage, there should be assurances that she and the children are covered. So that's initially the main thing. The second thing is to create a stable unit, a legally recognized unit within which the family can be identified and the family can thrive and the family's interests can be protected. Again, outside of that, you have no real legal protection. So for people who think that going to marriage is it's a romantic exercise, that's where the problems start, because they don't understand that it's a legal institution created for very specific purposes of building and preserving family wealth.
And when you say in sickness and in health, till death do us part, that means that you take care of your partner even in death.
Regardless, because I mean, if you work for any institution, whether it's a government institution or a corporation, yes, you may have sick days, but you still work for the company. Yes, you may have off days, but you're still putting in work. It doesn't matter what your state of being may be at any given time. What should always be the prevailing factor is your mindset, your attitude, and your commitment to that institution.
Khutjo, you hear it a lot. especially for single women or women who choose not to have children, who choose not to be married, there must be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Who traumatized you? Who hurt you so much that you just don't want to do this? We have many examples, Oprah Winfrey being one of them, plenty of examples of people who have had their life partners, but they necessarily didn't get into a legal arrangement.
Sure. And I think that's what the play also interrogates and challenges, that why is it not okay for a woman not to want children? Why is it okay? Why is it not okay for a woman not to want to get married? There are no issues or problems with her. It just happens to be what she would like as a choice, what she makes as a choice. It's her preference. And so because of and believing a particular thing, it's very hard for us to unlearn those things. It's very hard for us to uncondition ourselves for the expectations that are given on us. So it's, I find that,
Kofi, I wouldn't know from a male's perspective, but Khutjo mentions an important word, pressures that are placed on us. I know all the pressures that are placed on women. Are there pressures that are placed on men to be a particular man?
Yes, there is. There's pressure on you to be a provider. There's pressure on you to be a protector. There's pressure on you to be the prophet, the priest of the home. There's pressure on you to conduct yourself in a manly fashion, in a masculine, macho fashion in some communities. But the sad thing is, not too many men have the instruction or the role models to actually groom them into becoming that person. So it's all well and good to have these expectations, but what are we doing to actually prepare young men for these mantles that someday we're going to thrust on them? It's unfortunate because, like you were saying, for the most part, young girls are taught how to care for the family and how to look after the family and look after a spouse. Young men are simply just sort of expected to just start delivering. That's a lot of pressure. You're expected to be the breadwinner. That's a lot of pressure, especially if daddy's not around. That is a lot of pressure for a young male. So there needs to be that system that we start putting in place that grooms young men to not just look after themselves and their families, but also start looking after their spouses and then their children, and understand the long-term effects of not responsibly engaging in relationships and engaging in the procreative process, because it does have some serious repercussions.
And also there's some wisdom in what people who walked this continent before us had to say in terms of certain things, whether it's about mourning, whether it's about entering into a relationship. But there's also an aspect where when you're getting married as the woman, you will sit there the night before and everybody will tell you what to do. You're expected to wear a doek, you're expected to be there, but your potential husband, because you never know what will happen in 24 hours, he's out partying, he's out with somebody, he's at a bachelor party, things are nice for them. This expectation that as a woman, and you must know how to treat your husband, but no one talks to the man, to what Kofi is saying. How unfair sometimes are our traditions on us?
And sure, and that was one of the other areas that we looked at, and we wanted to put it in the play and to make it more of an interactive thing that happens when you enter into the space. That, like, while she's outside, the instructions on how she must take care of her man. But then at the end of the play, she questions, but who's asking him to do certain things? And that's a cultural unlearning that we're going to have to do, which is going to take years. But I do think that it starts with such endeavors and ventures, where we're questioning them, where we're not afraid to interrogate and to challenge and to speak to our elders and say, but what is the purpose of this thing? We're not saying that we don't want to do it, but what is the purpose of it? And how fair is it? Is it equal also? And oftentimes, those kinds of conversations don't really fare well, but it's important that we continue interrogating and questioning. Because I think then we'll have a better understanding, and I can then make informed decisions about how I want to continue and move forward in that institution.
Kofi, in closing up the conversation, Khutjo touches on a word, purpose. When a man decides that they want to enter into a marriage or that they are ready, do you find that oftentimes you are ready because you really have found your rib, or it's because I'm ready now? This is the time, because women, we have the clock is ticking. Men, I don't know what it is that is there. Is there anything there that says, okay, now it's time, And this one, okay, she's, this is, I don't like this, I don't like that, but I'll put up with it because, it's time to get married.
Well, I mean, for the ignorant man, the man who's not been prepared for marriage, he's going to go on superficial things like, my family says it's time, my family wants grandkids, my work is putting pressure on me to get married, because if I want that position, I need to find myself a wife. That's what the ignorant man's going to do, and in the process, he's going to end up creating a very painful situation, not just for himself, but for his new family as well. The knowledgeable man, the man of understanding, the man of wisdom, is going to first find out what his purpose is, and then find a woman who can help him accomplish his purpose. When he comes to her, he's not going to come to her empty-handed. He's not going to come to her looking to her for all the answers. He's going to say, this is what I want to do with my life, and then he's going to identify her based on the contribution that she can make to his life, and how he can reward her, if you will, for her, for the role that she plays in his life. Because the reality is, if she stays in her father's house, whatever wealth she creates is for her family. But if she comes into your house, she's bringing you wealth. So you need to reward her with faithfulness, with love, with consideration, with time. All of these things are the little repayments you can make to show your appreciation for a woman of that caliber. That's what a man of knowledge, a man of understanding, a man of wisdom would be considering, purpose-wise, when it's time to get married.
We could go on for days on this. Thank you very much for coming through. Such an insightful conversation. Speaker and relationship guru Kofi Ofori-Boateng, as well as the director of a play called Mirage, Khutjo Green. Thank you once again.